Okay, so let's talk about that answer. I'm joined by CNN political analyst and editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast, John Avlon, along with Hill contributor and Ben Carson supporter, GIanno Caldwell. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you, Carol. Good morning.
Good morning. So GIanno, do you wish your candidate had explained that a little better?
Well, what we see in this debate yesterday, which I think was the best performance that Dr. Ben Carson has ever given in any of the four debates, is he does have a grasp on the issues when it comes to foreign policy. What I believe he gave was
you think that answer showed he had a grasp on foreign policy?
He agreed with the president's idea, or rather solution, to send 50 special ops into Syria, and I know a number of people also agree with that. I know that there were some things that he didn't address within his answer, like Afghanistan, but overall, he is not a foreign policy wonk, as we've seen with a number of the candidates on the stage that have been working in this field. Furthermore, this was an economy-based debate. So for what he did provide us, showed us that he's grown from a number of the gaffes in which we've seen him give in terms of foreign policy previously.
Okay, so John, I was just confused when he mentioned that Chinese were there, but I don't know what he meant by there in Syria, because they're not there.
Yeah, so they're not there militarily. He may have been thinking about some reports of business deals involving China, but it was a convoluted answer. I'm helpful. You know, I appreciate the clarification that he was in fact supporting the president's decision on special ops from his supporter, but there was also the implication of him getting much more involved in taking out the caliphate, which he said could be quite easy from a base in Iraq. That sounds like a lot more ground troops and possibly an escalation of airstrikes, but it was not a coherent answer. I don't think a supporter could spin that.
So GIanno, so I'd like you to address that, GIanno, because it's just hanging out there. So go ahead and defend your candidate.
Well, so there are reports, unconfirmed though, that the Chinese are in that area. So yeah, that wasn't probably the best response he could have given in terms of that. But as I said, you know, you have a number of different candidates on this stage that actually are senators, U.S. senators. They work in this area. They are involved in foreign policy issues regularly. He has absolutely grown from his previous positions on foreign policy, and I know that he has a military advisor that's advising him on these issues. We're not going to see a perfect response every time from Dr. Ben Carson when it comes to foreign policy issues. He's still growing in that particular area, and I think for what he did give, he gave something that was substantive that we can take, and he can grow a bit more in terms of his response and knowledge on foreign policy issues.
Okay, so John, you were, I could hear you in the background.
Well, I appreciate the lowering the bar for his candidate, and I appreciate the fact that his supporters saying that Dr. Carson doesn't have a lot of experience in foreign affairs. The problem is, of course, that foreign affairs ends up being primarily what a president does, and I think grading on a curve isn't the way the world works.
And that may be a fair statement, but as you know, when it comes to folks that are actually in these environments, you're a U.S. senator or you're a president, you get a whole lot more information and more people advising you on a regular basis when it comes to these foreign policy issues. He does not have that, but he is growing in his base of knowledge so he can put out these foreign policy plans that will be beneficial to the country as a whole. So it's not lowering the bar, as you suggested. There's other folks with more resources that can speak on these issues than he has currently.
Explicitly, what you're doing is lowering the bar for your candidate based on a lack of experience. That's okay. I think it's very honest, but that's explicitly what you're doing.
I disagree with you.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to another topic, gentlemen. Donald Trump and Carly Fiorina brought up President Putin. Let's listen to that exchange.
As far as the Ukraine is concerned, and you could say Syria, as far as Syria, I like if Putin wants to go in, and I got to know him very well because we were both on 60 Minutes. We were stablemates, and we did very well that night.
One of the reasons I've said that I would not be talking to Vladimir Putin right now, although I have met him as well, not in a green room for a show, but in a private meeting.
Okay, so John, that was a good comeback by Carly Fiorina.
Yeah, there are two problems with that. First of all, Carly Fiorina did meet Vladimir Putin in a green room at an APEC conference. It was not a green room for a show, but she, in fact, did meet him very briefly in a green room. The second problem is that, 60 Minutes isn't exactly a live, it's not a live show where people hang out and have drinks before they all go on stage together. Trump and Putin were on different continents at the time they were filmed. But, we can judge the sound bites absence of substance. That's obviously the game the candidates love to play anyway.
Okay, so Gianni, I just was, last question, I promise. Who do you think won the debate? I'm just curious.
So, who do I think won the debate? I mean, there were several winners. I thought that it was Dr. Ben Carson's strongest debate by far. I think Marco Rubio did very, very well. I think Ted Cruz did really well when it came to talking about immigration and woven in his personal story into that. I thought that one of the losers of the debate was John Kasich. I think there's no way that he can win a Republican primary. I think that he has a better shot of beating Hillary Clinton if he goes and get his nomination petitions and run as a Democrat. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
All right, I have to leave. I have to leave it there.
The rhino hunting just doesn't stop. But look, Rand Paul had a strong debate, Rubio had a strong debate, and Christie crushed the undercard.
No question about that. I think Christie
I'd have to
is
agree with
running
that.
for...
I got to leave it there, guys. I do.
right.
I'm sorry. But thank you for
Thanks,
being
Carol.
here. John
Thank you for
Avlon,
having
GIanno
me.
Caldwell.